Well, you mean it for my character in particular? So Ella gets to interact with a lot of other characters. Her relationship with Lucifer deepens and becomes more of a brother-sister relationship. They, as you probably already know, go on a really fun road trip to Vegas where he discovers a nugget about her that he's like, whoa, what? Like she says something, and it's the only moment we see Ella, vulnerable. Um, Ella's so comfortable in her skin. She's so clear about who she is. She's so unapologetic about her lack of filter. And it's the first moment that she says something and it takes him aback, and that's something that will be explored later on in the season. We see her really connect with the dead this season. She gets really attached to a squirrel that she names Leo, who becomes part of evidence. And you'll see her more this season kind of just because she is surrounded by dead people. And in my culture, in Mexican culture, Dia de los Muertos, it's a very important part of our mythology, Dia de los Muertos and all this. And I like to kind of add little things where, you know, she's like, you're probably in a better place now. And she'll talk to a victim and send him on his way. And then her friendship with Chloe deepens. They definitely become, she becomes a sounding board for Chloe when she's dealing with wondering why Pierce is acting a certain way towards her. Ella is the girl that she comes to, and so we'll see that. She meets Trixie for the first time, which I know a lot of people are saying that Ella is like the older Trixie. So we'll get to see both of them together. She's a little amazing Latina actress, you know, Cubana, and I adore her. And I'm like, when are we going to do scenes together, Scarlett? So it finally happens this season. Ella also has her first season with Menadale. So obviously she's a woman of faith, a woman of science. So I love that they waited until season 3 for Ella to have her first interaction with a real life angel. So I liken Ella to almost an angel in real life, and she gets to finally meet a celestial being and almost show a real life angel an angelic perspective, which I think is so sweet. What I love about Ella, even from that first episode, is that even though she's doing her work, she makes these off-the-cuff remarks, and they really land on the other characters. So she is so kind of clear in her faith that she'll just say things, and she'll throw them away, and to them, they're like, oh, they really land heavy. So that's what I love about her. She's very charming that way. And then we'll meet another one of her brothers, so we'll get to know more about Ella's family. As we know, she has an abuelita who taught her how to pick locks. Her brothers taught her how to steal cars. Her one brother is obviously a criminal, as we know from last year. We're going to meet another brother. So we're starting to expand Ella's family. She comes from Detroit, from humble beginnings. And we learn just more and more tidbits about her. I say she's, you know, such an interesting little character that just when you think you know her, all of a sudden you're like, oh, not only does she speak Klingon and Spanish and English, she speaks French. So they really, the writers have really let me do that. Whenever they're talking about the Eiffel Tower, I'll be like, mais j'aime les hommes, sont très romantiques et sexy, and the writers, you know, let me play with that. And then, you know, we have such an international fan base that the fans in France love it. And they're like, oh my God, you're speaking our language. And I'll throw in a little Spanish in there, you know, especially if she's talking on the phone with her family. So I think she'll just continue being a very relatable character. Still no love interest for Ella, which I actually really like. I think there's very few women on TV who don't lead with their sexuality, and what I love about Ella is she's in her own lane. She's not self-conscious. She's a woman of faith. She's a woman of science, and she's not defined by a romantic relationship. She's just defined by her work, her faith, and her family. And I think, like our showrunner Ildi said, that if you are just comfortable in your skin and you embrace your quirks, she's clumsy, she talks a lot, but if you own it, then it inspires other people to own their quirks. And that's why I think that she's become such a beloved character, because she's not the coolest girl in the room, but, you know, a lot of us are.
She is definitely more down to earth than anyone else around.
She is. I mean, look, we have a lot of beautiful people on our show. Yesterday I was doing a scene with Welling and Tom Ellis and Lauren, and I looked at the three of them, I'm like, God, you are all beautiful. You know, and Trisha was an actual supermodel. She was on the cover of Vogue, and Lauren is just gorgeous and talented and funny, and Tom is just oozing with charm. I mean, he's just so charismatic, you know, and it's all real. All that magnetism is really him. Even if it's 5 in the morning and he's rolling in with his sweatpants, he's so charming. And it's funny, my mom, who's Mexican, came to visit, and I was telling her about Tom. I was like, you know, he had, you know, this, I was telling him about his past and his kids and stuff, and he's like, you know, he had a girlfriend here and a wife there, and she's like, that is the price you pay for being so charming. And I was like, I guess he's very charming, you know. So as beautiful as everyone is, and everyone's so equally talented, yeah, Ella is definitely the one that I think. Well, this is what I love too. You know, at Comic-Con, I was so touched that these young girls from Australia had slept over 2 nights to win tickets for a signing with the Lucifer cast. And one girl cosplayed Ella, and she made a forensic jacket, and she had a top knot, and she had glasses. And I was so touched because usually at Comic-Con, people are cosplaying Wonder Woman and Harley Quinn and Catwoman and these superheroes, these larger-than-life superheroes. And I was so touched that these girls were cosplaying Ella Lopez, who is a scientist. And I literally cried a little bit because I thought, wow, I feel so lucky that when I was little, there wasn't a Latina scientist on TV. And someone told me the other day that I'm the only Latina scientist on primetime TV. And that it's rad, and it's also, you know, we need more. I shouldn't be the only one. I should be one of many. Yeah. And I was so touched that these girls from the other side of the world dressed up like a Latina scientist. And so, and they weren't, you know, they weren't Latina, they were Australian. So I was so proud of the fact that Ella almost has this superhero quality, except, look, we all want to be Wonder Woman, but we're never going to have a magic lasso. But we can inspire the next generation of women to go into the sciences and work for NASA and get us to Mars. And that was such a pride for me. So I do hope that she's relatable, and I hope that she's inspiring, and I hope that you know, she does more than just be like the comic relief of a show. I feel like Ella is almost starting her own movement in her own subtle way, and I feel very, very grateful to the writers and to the rest of my cast that there's no ego. You know what I mean? Everyone wants everyone to shine, and Lauren German is the first person to say, oh my God, that's so funny, do that again, or everybody wants everyone to feel comfortable, and that's why I think we're such a good band, because there's no competition. So I'm really proud to be part of this cast and crew.
Aimee, talking about being a Latina scientist on TV, have you reached out to communities, to STEM programs, to go and talk to the kids so they know about your character, about the show, and also to inspire them?
100%. I do a ton of charity. I'm on a board of a charity called MUSE, Motivating Our Students Through Experience, and I do go in to talk to young Latinas in East LA and tell them about, you know, how someone like Ella, who grew up in Detroit with very little money, basically poverty, was able to turn it around and become a really successful scientist. So 100%. And I'm actually trying to get to the point where, like, I'm an actor, I'm not an actual scientist, but I do have 3 degrees from Northwestern. You know, I majored in economics, journalism, and French, and my mom grew up super poor in Mexico. My dad grew up super poor in Puerto Rico. And I'm very, very cognizant of that. This weekend, the Academy asked me to be on their panel. That's what I'm saying. The show has done wonders. Like, they're like, so the Academy reached out, and you've been approved by the Academy, and they want you to come in and speak about Latinas in Hollywood because of the fact that your character is such a positive role model on the show. So that will be disseminated on YouTube and be, you know, part of the Academy's platform. So 100%. What I'm trying to do now is trying to get actual Latina scientists to come and talk to the kids, so I can tell them from my perspective. You know, they know me from George Lopez, where she played, you know, Millionaire, and Dexter, where I always was cognizant of making sure that I was doing homework while I was on the phone with Dexter. But they also have to see the real thing. You know, it's like, look, this girl came from Boyle Heights, graduated Stanford, and now she's a lawyer, now she's a scientist, so that they can see role models outside of their nuclear family. So 100%, I'm very, very involved in charities, and you know, my latest project, which is great, you know, it's this Mexican vigilante superhero movie, which I'm really proud of, produced by Lorenzo de Bonaventura and Joe Carnahan and Ben Bray, and yeah, I get to play a Latina from East LA who goes off and gets her educational degree and comes back to become a teacher in her own community. So I do try to pick roles that are role models, especially for my community, and then yeah, definitely take it a step further and hang out with them, go to the Sparks game with them, go on camping trips with them. So yeah, 100%. And I actually took them to come see Justina Machado and Norman Lear's show. So I actually paid for, Justine and I split it, where we paid for a bus to take 55 girls to go see a live taping of themselves being represented. So yeah, 100%.
So how important is it for you, do you think, because Latinos in the arts don't always go hand in hand. They usually, when you go up in the family, they're like, you know what, that's not the career you should really be doing.
Yeah.
How have you been doing to change that, especially since it's Hispanic Heritage Month, and there's really not that many Latinos in this industry? So how do you...
Well, I think, you know, like I said, because of Lucifer, I was asked, the Academy approved me to be on the panel this weekend. And I'm up there with, you know, Oscar-winning directors and producers. And I think that we have to start the change from behind. On Lucifer, we have Latinas on our writing staff. And we actually have 3 Latino series regulars on the show. Kevin Alejandro is Mexican. Scarlett is Cuban. I'm Puerto Rican and Mexican. So what I love about this show is that we are just part of the American fabric. You know what I mean? Like, it just is what it is. We're part of the story. And I think what I'm trying to do is really try to encourage the next generation to become content creators, which is what we really need. And through this charity MUSE, I'm talking to the parents so that they can allow their kids to go to college instead of going to work right after school, right? So they want their kids to just start making money right away. So I'm like, what we have to do, and because Spanish is my first language, I can talk to the parents and be like, look, you have to trust that if they go to school, it's more long-term thinking, but it'll pay off, and then they'll be able to become directors, writers, producers. So I think the goal is to really encourage young girls and young guys in our community to tell their stories. You know, I just did this movie called El Chicano with this young actor who's going to blow up. He just starred opposite Benicio del Toro in Sicario sequel, and I said, you have to write your own stories. That's the only way we're gonna do it. So so that's what I'm doing. I'm using platforms like On Saturday and you guys to spread, you know, the word to hopefully whoever's reading this will be like, wow, if she's right, you know, we need to create our own stories. I'm writing my own script, so even if Lucifer lasts 10 years, the next step for me would be, you know, to create something. And I always think we have to create the change we want to see.
So I just want to ask, how do you think you relate to Ella? Because it sounds like you do in a lot of ways. And
Yeah.
How do you relate to her? How are you different from her?
That's a really good. People are always like, "Are you like Ella?" And I'm like babbling. I'm like, "No." And I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm so clumsy." Yes, I am like Ella. Well, okay. So the writers really established this vibrant character off the get-go. She was funny. She was smart, brilliant, really good at her job. No filter, kind of goofy and silly. I'm luckily a lot like that, so I just ran with what the writers were giving me, and luckily the writers saw that I naturally am clumsy, and I naturally talk really fast, and I naturally am just really goofy, so it kind of worked hand in hand. But I relate to her a lot in that, you know, school was always really important to me, even though I am the only person in my family to be in my field, just like Ella is probably the only person in her family in the sciences. I felt like it was really important to, use education as a tool to get out of poverty. So I think in that way, Ella and I both value education. You know, my abuelita is my rock, my mom is my rock, so that's really similar. I don't really, I guess, lead with my sexuality. You know, I'm pretty goofy. That's kind of my first instinct, and I guess Ella's the same. I guess Ella's a little bit more spiritual, more religious than I am. I'm very spiritual, but my dad is Buddhist, so I actually, you know, have studied Judaism and Buddhism and all that stuff, so I'm not as similar to her in that regard. But I am very similar to her, but she's definitely much smarter than I am. She knows, it's funny, someone reached out today for me to work with Chris Hardwick. They're like, Chris Hardwick, they think you're the female Chris Hardwick. And I'm like, oh, cool. You know? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm going to be with Chris and talk science. That's going to be fun. But, which would be great. I'm a huge fan of his. I love him, but he's so smart. So I think Ella's probably, she's brilliant. You know, I'm definitely not brilliant. Ella's definitely brilliant. So she's definitely smarter than I am. But yeah, I do relate to her a lot because I love what I do. I love my job, and I do try to spread love whenever I can. You know, like even this T-shirt, I'm like, why not wear a message, especially in this world that's going kind of crazy. I think we need more love. So I'm very not judgmental like her. I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. So I would say I'm like 90% like her.
And can you one more question? Can you share like a vision that you had for yourself, especially in your acting career, that you saw like manifest in your reality? I mean, was this something you always knew you wanted to do, or?
100%. I'm a comic book geek. Like, I'm the person that on Sunday morning, I woke up at 7 in the morning. I bought like a 1958 Cisco Kid original, because you know comic books used to be comic strips, like in newspapers. So I bought that. I bought like this little, you know, Star Wars like Yoda fake bong. Like I bought like this other comic book, you know, like I Hate Fairyland. I mean, I was out there, and even Kevin Alejandro was there with his kid, and he's like, Amy, where'd I go to get this T-shirt? I'm like, over there, northeast corner. He's like, where'd I go to get it? I'm like, over there, because I've gone to Comic-Con for years, right? So I always said, I remember like spending just hours in the Japanese animation wing, and there was like a Harry Potter chess tent, and I would just go play chess, and so I love that world, and I always thought, and Dexter is almost like in that vigilante world, but I always thought I want to be in that comic book world, but I want to be in a world where it's like I get to bring humor and heart, and but work with really good actors. And so to me, Lucifer has manifested into that, right? I mean, Tom Ellis is a great theater actor. I mean, that guy can hold his own with the greats in London, and he's headlining our show, and so you're getting like premium talent to be on a network TV show when, like, you know, it's not easy to find. And Lauren too, you know. So to me, I'm working with great actors. I'm working with incredible writers. I mean, from this show, you know, James Gunn is following me on Twitter, who just directed Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, Chris Hardwick's people are like reaching. So to me, and I also got, like I said, El Chicano. You know, it's a $9 million budget movie. I got the female lead. It's produced by Lorenzo de Boaventura, who's doing Transformers. And people are like, you're never going to be able to do a network show and do a movie. Well, guess what? I'm one day away from wrapping a Mexican vigilante superhero movie as the female lead. And so to me, I'm able to do a hit show on Fox that has an incredible, you know, international following. We get 8 million viewers, you know, a week on digital platforms. And I get to be the female lead in a Mexican vigilante superhero movie with the producer, Tom, you know, Ordenberg, who just got an Oscar for Spotlight. And so to me, I knew that it was possible, and so I'm like living the dream right now. So you think it, and the universe will conspire to make it happen. Thank you. Yay.
If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch more coverage from MUSE.